Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Mono County Redistricting 101 Community Conversation. We're going to launch into our conversation shortly. Just a few housekeeping items. We are going to have a short presentation from Mono County CAO Bob Lawton, followed by an interactive demonstration of the redistricting tool itself from Mono County IT's Eric Miller, followed by a Q&A where participants are able to ask questions via the chat feature or the Q&A feature. Both are active in the bottom of your Zoom webinar. In addition, this webinar is being simulcast on Facebook, and we will be monitoring questions in the comments section of Facebook as well. Lastly, this webinar is also being recorded and will be uploaded following the live presentation itself, as well as being translated in Spanish, and that recording will be available as well. Thank you again for joining us, and with that, I'll turn it over to Mono County CAO Bob Lawton.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Justin. And before we embark on our presentation, I just wanted to take a minute to thank some of the people who have been involved in our redistricting process, both operationally and also in developing today's presentation and this all-important community conversation. From the Mono County Information Technology Department, want to thank Sarah Moore, Olivia Hollandhorst, Matt Ullery, and Eric Miller, and of course, IT's leader, Nate Greenberg. From our County Clerk, Registrar of Voters Office, County Clerk Shireen Dedman, and Assistant County Clerk Queenie Bernard. From our County Counsel's Office, Christy Milovich, who has provided us with sound advice and helped make sure that not only do we meet our minimum obligations, but that we fulfill our full responsibilities to our fellow residents. And then tonight we're joined as part of increasing resident access to these discussions, our interpreters, Catherine Allen and Albert Gould. And obviously, I'd like to take a minute to thank Justin Caparuso, who has been at the helm with the presentation and our communications on this matter. This is a group effort, and the folks who I have thanked here tonight aren't just working on this presentation. They've been part of this process from the beginning. So thanks very much. Okay, let's proceed to the visual aids. Queenie, can I have the first slide, please? Okay, so and we'll go to that. And I think Justin has already covered. We'll present a redistricting overview, and we'll have IT show the digital resources and the redistricting tool demonstration, followed by questions and answers. So here is the main question is, what is redistricting? Why does it happen? We are represented, whether in Bridgeport or Sacramento or Washington, by people that we elect district by district. As population changes, governments have to redraw those boundaries to make sure that representation is equal and fair. And as it goes up the chain to Washington, but it also spreads out locally for school boards, county board of supervisors, special districts, and pretty much every place where we elect people to do public business on our behalf. Next slide, please. And this will show you the current boundaries of our supervisorial, of our 5 supervisorial districts. Virtually every county in the state of California has 5 supervisors, regardless of their population. And here, the current district boundaries are shown from north to south, and you'll get a sense of, in the inset, of how those boundaries are drawn within the town of Mammoth Lakes. And this is based on the 2010 census. And we'll see some changes as a result of the 2020 census. Next slide, please. So, pursuant to a landmark Supreme Court decision, redistricting is meant to ensure one person, one vote. And that is that the vote of a resident of one legislative district or Board of Supervisors district has the same weight, the same impact as a voter in any other district in the jurisdiction, whether it's the county or the state. And that ensures fairness and equity and representation. Not too long ago, rural districts carried a great deal more weight because they represented fewer people, but they sent the same one congressman to Washington that an entire city might at the same time. So the notion that equal districts where you have 6 residents, 3 in one district and 3 in the other, when you have malapportionment or not equal districts, you've got 5 people in one district and 1 person in the other. That's what redistricting is meant to correct. Every 10 years, we take the census data and we are required to draw new maps for legislative districts to account for movement and population changes. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? So redistricting is essential, and we invite and encourage and seek public engagement with helping define our new districts based on the most recent census. Where districts are, and what neighborhoods, what towns, what areas are included, have a great deal to do with who can run for a particular office, who runs against who for a particular office, and what's the nature of the connection between the residents of a legislative district. Your elected representatives make incredibly important decisions that affect your lives on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's easy to understand that representation at the state and particularly local level has a greater impact on our everyday lives than do the folks who get elected and sent to Washington. Because we're a representative democracy, the people we elect pay attention to the needs and expectations of the folks that live in their district, their constituents. And so that's another reason why redistricting is important, why your involvement and engagement is significant. And finally, we only do this when there's a census. We do this every 10 years. Folks who don't participate in this process won't be able to participate in a redistricting for another 10 years. They won't be able to express their concerns, make their voices heard in terms of what area are they part of for the purposes of representation. Next slide, please.
Sorry, CA Lawton, just give me a moment. I'm going to see if I could try to change the display real quick.
Oh,
in
sure,
presenter
that'd
view.
be fine. Okay, looks pretty good now. So redistricting has sometimes been referred to as letting officials select their voters as much as letting the public select their representatives. Your engagement in this process, starting now and as we move forward, is an important factor in ensuring that we hear and heed the largest number of voices and points of view in the process. We have a number of underrepresented communities in this county and in counties all over the state participating in the process, monitoring the outcomes, helping set the discussion for communities of interest, gives traditionally underrepresented communities, whether African American, Latino, Asian American, Native Americans, will give them the greatest opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. And as I mentioned before, we're doing this now in 2020. We're doing this now in 2021 based on the 2020 census. And it's going to be these districts will be in effect until 2031, no matter what happens to the population of Mono County or where growth may occur, where shifts take place. This is our chance to define what the districts will look like. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. And so make the body that makes the decisions on redistricting for our representatives in Washington and our representatives in Sacramento, it'll be the state government. For our local governments, it is the county will make its decision on what county districts will look like. Under new legislation in California, a number of different options were presented for carrying out redistricting, whether a commission or the county board of supervisors. Commissions are smaller groups; they're not elected officials, and they don't necessarily have the same level of engagement as members of the board. Can we go to the next page? Okay, so as I've said, we're using the 2020 census as the basis for our redistricting. Different jurisdictions establish different timelines for drawing the districts. At this time in California for Mono County, our deadline is December 15th for final adoption of district lines for the Board of Supervisors. That deadline looms a little bit more closely now than it would have otherwise due to COVID-19. During 2020, the pandemic made it much more difficult for census takers and enumerators to complete their task. The due date for submission got pushed back, and as a result, we only received our final census numbers on September 30th. And there's still some adjustments to be made to that, which will happen during October. But as I understand it, they're related primarily to populations in institutions such as correctional facilities, which don't have a large impact on Mono County. Next slide, please. Okay, so for 2021, the Board of Supervisors will make the decision on what the new district lines will look like. The staff of Mono County, the people that I've mentioned earlier tonight, from IT, from county clerk, from county council, are all part of supporting that process and giving the board the technical and operational support that they need. Because we're proceeding under state law, we've got a significant amount of public input expected for providing members of the public with an opportunity, I think the first time that I've ever seen it, to draw their own districts, to map the county, to provide samples or proposed district maps for consideration by the board. We've got the technical tools that will make that a little bit easier than it would have been otherwise. We've got a total of at least 4 public hearings already held or prospective for residents of the public to speak directly to the board, to share their concerns, to discuss what constitutes a community of interest and how people should be represented and what the priorities of the process will be. The redistricting process is a continuous, ongoing project. We're going to receive proposals as they're submitted, and we will react to them as we move forward. And the Board of Supervisors ultimately will look at the submitted proposals in determining what the final map will look like. And the redistricting tool will make it a little bit more clear. But we have requirements that the 5 districts must be as nearly equal in population as possible. Now, that may mean that some are much larger physically than others, because supervisors represent people, not square miles. And you'll see that when IT goes and brings the map up. But it provides a great opportunity to look at the county in different ways. So how can I participate in the redistricting process? Next slide. Thank you. Okay. So we have a Mono County redistricting website dedicated to this project, and IT will show you where that is. And through the website, you can provide general comments and feedback, offer input on communities of interest, and submit, using our mapping tool, a redistricting proposal. And in our forthcoming public hearings, you will have other opportunities to provide those comments and feedback, not merely online, but in the course of an ongoing meeting. Okay, so that brings us to the next slide, which is the website and redistricting tool. And I'd like to invite our folks from IT to demonstrate this for members of the public. And thanks very much for your patience and for your interest.
Okay, am I good to go here? All right, so here's the Mono County website, and this is where you'll find the redistricting information. So it'll be here featured in the spotlight, and you can see I'm at monocounty.ca.gov. And if you click on that redistricting link in the spotlight, that will pull up this redistricting page. And so the best way to kind of begin to look at the page here is with these navigation buttons at the top. These will get you to all the different pages that you might want to access. These icons here as well will help you navigate. And then any information that's pertinent to upcoming events or information that might be useful, you will see here kind of highlighted on this page. And so this is where you land. It's redistricting.monocounty.ca.gov. And basically this landing page just provides an overview of the redistricting process like Bob kind of went through here. You can click on some key topics over here. You're also able to translate into a variety of languages here. So feel free to do that if that would be helpful. And then going down on this main page, you'll see the getting involved process here. This is basically just a lot of helpful links that kind of point you in the direction of providing feedback for the redistricting process. Then we have the Census Map here with a lot of good demographic information for anyone that might be interested in learning a little bit more about who lives in Mono County and where they live. So you can toggle on and off layers here. So I'm toggling on voting age. So that's people 18 and older. And if you zoom in far enough here, you'll actually get labels for each census block, which is the lowest level of information or geography provided by the census. So here you can see this block has 126 people of voting age. The total population and a lot of other information can also be accessed in these pop-ups, which are available on all of these different layers. So that's kind of helpful if you have any interest in learning a little bit more about Mono County. And then we're looking at frequently asked questions here on the bottom of this main page. So in that we have information to contact supervisors, as well as the current supervisorial districts. So you can kind of zoom in on this map and get a sense of where your house might fall or what supervisor district you're in. And then some additional frequently asked questions here. And then I'm going to navigate to this Browse Proposals page here, which allows you to see proposals that have been submitted by other members of the public. So if I click on this eye icon here, these districts load. So this is a map that somebody else had created and put together in the tool that I will show you at the end of my presentation here. So you can see the map with all of its various information here, as well as a description that was put in by the author to describe the idea behind their map. And so things you would describe here would be how it's different than the current supervisor maps, or just anything that kind of sets it apart from someone else's proposal. And then I'm going to move over to the process and timeline page here. So we're looking at just what's going on with the redistricting process. We've got a list of all the previous events and public hearings that have gone on, as well as today's event, and all the future events will be here all the way up to the board basically moving forward with the final proposal and approving it. And then the background and legal requirements page here. This is just some basic information about like what's a community of interest, which is something that we ask members of the public to submit here. Why is it important? And then we also have some information about the 2010 or 2011 redistricting process and kind of how that played out. So this just adds some context to this new redistricting process that we're doing here in 2021. And you can learn kind of how things went then and just dive into that information a little bit more if that interests you. And then we'll go to this events and alerts page. And this just is calling out tonight's event, and this will be calling out the next event in the series in the future. So this is a good page to just kind of go to look at what might be happening next with the redistricting process. Okay, and then I'm going to jump back to this public input page here. So this is actually where you go to provide information to us about what you'd like to see in this redistricting process. So providing general feedback comments here, you just enter whatever you'd like here and click submit. And things you'd enter here would be like what, like your neighborhood, what is unique about it and why you'd like to see it continue to be part of a single supervisor district moving forward. And then we also have a way where you can create a map of any community of interest that you want. So if I click on this link here, it draws me to this page. And then I've got it zoomed in here so I can draw my community of interest in this area here. And then submit a comment along with that about what makes this unique. And hit submit. And so that would basically then all of these comments are logged and they will be shown here on the bottom of this public input page. So we've gotten a few comments so far that you can see here, and we'd welcome anybody's comments here moving forward. I think it'll help us with the process. And so then, let's see, going back here, I'm going to play a video by Sarah Moore from the GIS team, who basically outlined what it's like to create a proposal with our mapping tool, and just how you would do that moving forward. So let me see here. Play.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 Mono County Redistricting App. I'm going to walk you through how to create a district proposal. So if you first open the app, this is what you will see. You will have an empty map here. If you have, this is your first time in the application. If you have already started a proposal, those are saved inside of your browser. So it will pop up here instead of the empty map. So the first thing you need to do if you're wanting to start a new proposal is click Create New Proposal down here at the bottom. And then again, if this is your first time in the application, you will just have these top 3 tan options. But if you've already started a proposal, you can return to it using this green button down here at the bottom. So you have 3 options for creating a new proposal. You can start from scratch. So essentially you start with this empty map of all of the census blocks, and you can assign each of those blocks to the 5 districts, or you can start from something that already exists. So you can start from the current district boundaries and just make changes in assigning the blocks as necessary. Or you can start from a proposal that someone else has submitted. If you find something in the existing proposals tab here that is closer to what you're going for, and then again, you can make changes as necessary. So for the purposes of demonstration here, I'm going to do start from scratch. And just FYI, you can only essentially have 1 active proposal going at a time. So if you use one of these create a new proposal options, it will essentially clear out any work that you've already done. So just be aware of that. All right, first thing you need to do is give your proposal a name. There's also a place for you to add in a description. Please do put in a sentence or 2 about kind of what you were going for. Those descriptions are going to be very helpful once the actual selection process starts. And then you can click Start Assigning Blocks. And then this is where you will do most of your work. So we have our map over here, and we have this sort of informational panel over here on the left. All of the districts are listed out here. The colors are consistent throughout everything. So District 1 is orange over here, it's orange up here, it'll be orange in the map, and it'll be orange in this graph as well. So the other thing that you have down here is a population indicator. Again, you will have that same population indicator down here represented more visually. That's just how many people are in the blocks that you have assigned to that district. We also have in this graph down here our target population per district. So that's just taking the county's total population and dividing it by 5, which for the 2020 census was 2,639. So that's what you're aiming for. And so this deviation number right here is essentially just going to tell you how far away you are from that target. So your currently assigned population subtracted from the target population. So keep an eye on those numbers as you go. And as far as assigning blocks and getting around in the map, so map navigation is very similar to something like Google Maps. You can just click and drag the map around. You have zoom in and zoom out buttons here that will let you get closer or further away. If you have a scroll wheel on your mouse, you can of course use that. If you're using a trackpad, it's a little bit more finicky, but you can do like a 2-finger up or a 2-finger down. Every trackpad is a little bit different. We also have some additional layers here. You can mouse over this little pancake stack. Since we're doing this by population, there is a population density layer that you can use. And that will show you there's a legend over here. So the darker purples are places with more people, right? So here's population center. And then a lot of these rural blocks don't have any people in them at all. So that's good information to have. We also have current administrative boundaries. So we have the current supervisor districts, if you want to see those. We have also things like fire district boundaries and community service districts. There's some down there. So again, existing boundaries that are designed to group people together. So if you would like to use those in making your decisions, you have them available. And then the last good piece of information that's in here are the communities of interest. These are boundaries that were submitted by the public via our communities of interest public input application. And so you may want to take a look at some of these. These are communities of people that somebody thought should be kept together and not separated. So please do at least take a look at those before you start assigning your districts as well. All right, let's actually look at how to do this. So I am going to just go here to the northern part of the county. Zoom in a little bit so I can see all those districts. And then we have 3 tools over here for selecting blocks. I'm going to use this first one. This is the default, and it's also the simplest. So what you're going to do is you're going to toggle one of these districts. You don't have to start with District 1, but I'm going to. And then all you have to do is just go in here and start clicking on districts, and it will turn them whatever color is associated with the district that you're working with. Right? So you can just keep going like this as long as you want. You can build an entire district this way. Now, as you can see over here, the population is still 0, and that's just because none of these districts actually, or none of these blocks actually have any people in them. And if you zoom in a little bit further, you can actually hover your cursor over these and get a little pop-up that will show you how many people is in those districts. So let's see. Oh, there's one. Okay, that one has actual humans in it. So if I click on that one, now you can see there's my population 43, and it has started building the graph down here at the bottom. Okay, so I can keep going at this however long I want. As you can see, some of these districts are quite small, so you're welcome to zoom in to make sure that you get those. Some of them are very, very small. You can see like this guy down here. Here's this one right here. Those are going to be very difficult to see when you're zoomed out even this far. You can't almost even tell that those exist. And the best way to make sure you don't miss those, because you have to assign all of the blocks, no matter how small they are, and no matter whether they have population in them or not, they all have to be assigned. A good way to make sure you don't miss those and not have to zoom in really close and fly all over the map is to use these other 2 block selection tools. These are more mass selection instead of just one at a time selection. So the rectangle tool does pretty much exactly what it says. You can click on the map and that will give you an anchor point for your rectangle. And you don't have to hold your mouse button down, but you can just drag your cursor around and you can make a rectangle of any shape or size anchored at that one corner. So if I want to make sure I get all of those little tiny blocks, right, I could do something like this and then click once more to finish off your rectangle. And it does grab everything that is inside of the rectangle, and it also grabs anything that touches the rectangle. So it grabbed this block down here and it grabbed this block here as well. Okay. The other option that you have, if you want to grab everything but have a non-rectangular shape, we also have the draw tool, and that lets you draw any just kind of freehand shape that you like. So I'm going to switch over to District 2 here, and I want to grab all of this stuff, but this is going to be more difficult trying to draw a rectangle. So you're just going to click and hold your button down, and then you can kind of draw whatever shape you want. And you don't even have to close off the shape. It'll just grab, again, everything that is inside of that shape or that is touching that shape, and then release your mouse button, and it'll select all of those blocks for you. Okay, and again, those two tools will ensure that you get all of those little itty bitty tiny districts and that you don't miss any of them. So that's how this works. If you're doing sort of manual district selection, just kind of work your way through all of these districts, pay attention to the deviation numbers here, watch the graph. Here's your visual representation of that target population is this black line at the end here. Okay. These bottom two boxes, you don't have to pay too much attention to until you start getting close to being done. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to try to assign all of these. I'm actually going to go back over here to create new, and I'm going to say create a new proposal using the current districts. That'll at least put us closer to being done so that I can show you what those bottom two boxes are for. So here we go. Here are the current district boundaries. And here's the graph. And again, you can see why we're doing this redistricting process in the first place. The population numbers are pretty uneven, especially between District 1 and Districts 2, 3, and 4. So you still have to give it a name and a description. And here we go. So this is all sort of pre-populated for us. But now, since most of the blocks are assigned, looks like we still have 3 that are unassigned. So I'm going to resolve those first. Now, if you are starting from a proposal you didn't create, like this one, it's probably going to be pretty hard to find those 3 unassigned blocks. They're probably very small. So the easiest thing to do is hit resolve here. And what that's going to do is just give you a list of all of the blocks that have not yet been assigned. It'll also show their population. And all you have to do here is just click on one of these, and it'll zoom the map right to that block. You can always zoom out if you need a little bit of context as to where that is. This one pretty obviously needs to go into District 2. So you can just use this drop down here and say, you go with District 2. It turns it green and it removes it from the list. And then you can just keep going down the list like that. So this one pretty obviously goes in 3. And this one obviously goes with 3 as well. There we go. So once you've emptied this list, you can return to this overview tab, which is where we were. And now this box down here has turned green. You have assigned all blocks and you have met that requirement. The second requirement is that the population numbers be pretty close to the target. We recognize that it is impossible to get the exact same number of people in all of the districts. And so the requirement really is just that you get pretty close. And the numerical value for pretty close is within 10%. And that deviation specifically references the difference between the least populous district, so right now that's 1, and the most populous district, which right now is 2. Okay, so you have to get essentially the biggest one and the smallest one within 10% of each other. Once you have done that, this box will turn green, and once both of the boxes are green, then you can submit your proposal. So once you're ready to submit, you just hit the submit button. It will ask you to confirm your submission. And once you've confirmed, then your proposal will show up in the list of existing proposals so that other people can look at it. That's this preview button. Or someone else could use your proposal as a starting point for their own proposal. hopefully this was helpful for you. If you need to get back to this video, that can be done on this home tab or from the help button elsewhere in the app. We've also linked the full documentation, and you can find that on the redistricting webpage as well for some additional help. Good luck creating your districts.
Okay. So that video can be found again on this public input page. And that's just right here. There's also a PDF that outlines this process as well. So that's all I had, Justin. I'd like to kick it over to you.
Great. And so we will go into any Q&A. There are two options, as I had referenced. Preferably, there's the Q&A at the bottom of the Zoom platform. There's also the chat function. And then for our Facebook live streaming platform, you can put your question in the comments. And at this time, Bob, we don't have any comments or questions in either platform.
Okay. Is there anything that anybody else would like to contribute based on what we've already seen? Any of our panelists? Shireen, I'm going to put you on the spot for just a second. Will we be, the Registrar of Voters Office, they'll be responsible for ensuring that the proper ballots get sent out to the districts. What are we looking at as far as a deadline for the Registrar of Voters? The board will adopt its final lines effective December 15th. Is that going to put ROV behind the 8 ball?
So that was one of the things that the entire state was discussing. And to be honest, I think we're lucky as Mono County because I'm not sure it'll put us too far behind.
Okay. I see Sarah Moore has her hand up.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that we will have, we're in the process of getting both that help video and the PDF help documentation translated into Spanish. They do not exist yet, but they are in the works. So just wanted to let you guys know that's coming.
Okay, we have a question from Chris Bubser. If you submit a proposal and the census data change, how do we update? And I'm going to pivot, I think. Well, let's start with Eric. We've talked about the adjusted census figures. Is there a likelihood that the adjustment will be large enough that it would upset any work that folks have already been doing?
It's hard to say for sure, but we don't anticipate the numbers changing so much that it would affect the final outcome or those deviations between districts.
Okay, and we have what, a 10% spread allowable from the most to least populous district.
Yes, and that's correct. And I think, you should think about the maps that you're proposing more as, an idea for a general district, more so than, the final answer for a district, if that makes sense.
So thematically, you may have an approach, and I think we saw one in the demonstration, where there would be only one approach would have only one district out of the 5 that did not have some portion of the town of Mammoth Lakes. And that's an approach. And if the census figures come in differently and require some adjustment, there could still be a map drawn probably with that approach. Similarly, if you had 2 districts that didn't have anything in Mammoth Lakes, or you had a district which was took up the whole east side of the county from north to south, that conceptually we could probably make adjustments and then retain them.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's well said. Yep.
Chris, I see that answers your question. Okay, here's another question from an anonymous attendee. Can you talk about where population has changed in the county so we have an idea of the changes? And that's a great question. And I think for a visual answer on this, and Eric, I'm gonna bump back to you. If I'm not mistaken, if we go to the mapping tool and put the current districts up, it will show on the bar graph which districts are overpopulated now and which districts are relatively underpopulated. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, there we go. That's the on the bottom of the bar. If you want to zoom out so we can see the whole county.
Sure, here we go.
Okay, so we've got District 1, which, okay, let's zoom.
So District 1 has 2,147 right now,
Right.
if we were to keep the current district. And the ideal district, so that's kind of the total population of the county divided by 5. So that would be
Right.
5 equal districts is 2639.
Mhm.
2639.
And then,
so, sorry, and then in this case, we'd have to add population to
Right.
this district because the deviation is too far from the average there.
so just to get a sense of what's happened with the population distribution, we're down a little over 1,000 from 2011, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and so it would seem that the lion's share of any reduction or any loss of population would be, relatively speaking, from District 1. And if there's a shift within the county, it's gone to districts 2, 3, and 4. Is that probably a good way to describe it?
Yeah, really the case is nowhere in the county gained significant population.
Right.
And Mammoth Lakes lost population more than other places.
Right.
So that's kind of how the split shook out.
Okay. I hope that's responsive to the question that our viewer posed. Thank you, Eric.
I don't see any further open questions at the moment, Bob.
Okay. And let's see. Okay. Okay. Justin, what do you recommend? We have a handful of attendees who are not panelists, and I certainly would welcome any questions, anything that folks would like to know or offer about our discussion so far. That would be great.
Yeah, I think we continue to welcome questions. And as just a reminder, this presentation will be available, of course, on our social media platforms, YouTube, and on the website itself. And we encourage people to watch it after as well and share it.
And I think we will, as we move forward into the public hearings in the future, we will present information functionally equivalent to the slideshow, if not the actual slideshow itself. So folks who weren't who didn't catch this will have the opportunity to catch up. And as if we develop additional information, we'll make changes to the slideshow presentation so that each public hearing really facilitates meaningful engagement from anybody who happens to attend. You won't need to have been present from the very first in order to get the full benefit of participation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. I think with that, unless there are other comments from panelists or Bob or any other questions, I think that we can conclude this community presentation for the evening.
Okay. Well, thank you, Justin. And thanks everybody for your support in developing this over the past weeks and for making tonight's presentation a success. So Sarah, Olivia, Matt, Eric, Nate, Shireen, Queenie, Christy, Catherine, and Albert, my thanks to you all. And have a great night, everybody.